And there's some patients I'll tell them don't eat much butter. But olive oil is actually the oil that anybody can eat very safely.
Excellent. This is fascinating. Earlier, you had talked about immunity. And this segment is being taped. It's the middle of September. We're coming into the flu season now. We're starting to see more hype on H1N1, the swine flu. What is your feeling about the swine flu vaccine and what people can do in order to be able to keep their body functioning at their best and their immune competence as strong as possible? Do you think that people should have the vaccine?
Well, you just asked me a whole bunch of questions, Ken, and the answer, number one, is, first of all, anything that's good for you is going to be good for your immune system. And anything that's bad for you is going to be bad for your immune system. So number one, avoid sugar. Avoid fried foods, and avoid anything that's really not good for you. These fake foods, processed foods, food additives, all these things are so terrible. They'll basically wipe out your bank account. Okay, we have sort of a reserve in our bodies of things that can help fight things that come in there. And if you waste those things on bad food, they're not going to be around for when you need them. It's sort of like wasting your money, and then all of a sudden you have an emergency and you need to go to your savings account. It's not there anymore. So number one, you want to really eat well. Then you also need to rest properly as well. It's the same sort of thing. If you're staying up all night, burning the candle on both ends, you're basically depleting your bank account. But when it comes to the flu vaccine itself, that's a very controversial topic, and I don't necessarily recommend the flu vaccine for everybody. First of all, especially the swine flu vaccine, they're really rushing this to market. It's not been properly tested. Even the companies themselves are admitting to this. And if we look at the history of the swine flu vaccine, there's been some problems with it. Back in 1976 was the last time there was a swine flu scare, not necessarily epidemic. And we had a lot of our military being vaccinated with swine flu vaccine. And there was one person that actually died from the swine flu. There were 25 people that died from the vaccine itself, and hundreds that actually had paralysis. And some of that was temporary, but they actually became paralyzed. When the vaccine is given, it actually stimulates your immune system. It says, okay, there's a foreign invader out there, we better start burning it up, better start bleaching it. As we talked about before, well, you end up bleaching your own nerves. You end up overwhelming your system and actually causing that burning. And that can lead to inflammation. So you can overdo that.
Or what if a person already has inflammation and then they have the swine flu vaccine? Then what?
Then you're really in trouble. And the unfortunate thing is those are the same people that they're recommending they get the vaccine in the first place. Oh, you have these diseases, you better get the flu vaccine because you're at risk. And those people are at risk for the flu, and they are at risk for having problems from the flu. But what they really need to do is they need to stop poisoning themselves and treat themselves better. I could go on and on. You know, I give lots of talks, and I talk to a lot of patients. I always sound like a broken record. I always come back to don't poison yourself with sugar and fried foods. You know, if our listeners can get one thing out of what I say tonight, don't eat sugar, don't eat fried foods.
Now, there's sugar in fruit. Isn't fruit good for you?
Well, fruit can be okay. It does have antioxidants in it. It has things that are in there that are good. But fruit is very high in sugar. It's high in a very special type of sugar called fructose. You may have heard of high fructose corn syrup. This is concentrated fructose. But fructose is actually a very bad sugar. It goes through the body in a different way. You know, if you eat glucose, which is regular table sugar, your body has a choice. It can either burn it for energy or it can store it for fat. If you consume fructose, the body has no choice. It must be stored as fat. Now later it can be used as energy, but first thing it is stored. And it's a very inflammatory sugar. It actually causes a lot of inflammation.
Now for people who have a sweet tooth and want to use something as a sugar substitute, how do you feel about NutraSweet and these other types of products, aspartame, things like that, sweet and low?
They're all synthetic. They're all really poisonous to everybody. And if you give enough to someone, you'll actually injure them. So you want to avoid putting poisons into your body. The other thing that they do is they stimulate your sweet tooth. That sweet taste is extremely addictive. And if you can get that out of your system, you're much better off. You know, I have patients telling me, Ken, all the time, but doc, I crave sugar. Doesn't that mean it's good for me? No, it means that you're addicted. You know, the heroin addict is craving heroin. Does that mean the heroin's good for them? Well, of course not. Or the cigarette smoker craving the cigarette. So when you put it in those terms, people go, okay, that makes sense.
What about stevia? That's supposed to be a natural sweetener with no calories in it that comes from a plant. How do you feel about that type of sweetener?
That's not as bad as some of the other sweeteners, but a lot of the stevia on the market now is not natural stevia. It's actually synthetic stevia, and they're putting other sweeteners in there. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend that either, unless it's really natural stevia, which actually has a discolorment to it. It's not clear. It's sort of brownish looking. You'd have to get that from special sources.
Now, many of us have such busy lifestyles. We're always on the go. If you go down Route 18, all you see are fast food places. Can a person live in this day and age, being away from home and running around between school and work, and be able to eat well in spite of all these temptations that are in front of us? And if so, what is it that they could do? What suggestions do you have?
Well, you know, you really need to plan ahead. You can't wait for the last minute and just say, I'm going to grab something. Because if you do, you're going to grab the wrong thing. So it requires planning. But if you plan ahead, it doesn't take a whole lot more time than if you're just grabbing things. So you need to go to the store. You need to have these items in your home and cook for yourself, perhaps bring things with you. Or if you do choose to eat out, be very careful what you're eating. Be aware that a lot of these fast food places, every single item on the menu has high fructose corn syrup and has these fried vegetable oils in them. Every item.
So in wrapping things up, Mike, what is it that you could share with our viewers based on your years of experience? Are there any tidbits of information that we haven't covered that you feel our viewers need to know that they really can't get in too many places that would really help them?
Well, I'd say be very careful with supplements. There's a lot of supplements being sold in the marketplace purporting to be good for this or good for that. And you really need to be very careful, because the only thing a supplement is good for, first of all, supplements should supplement your diet. They don't replace your diet. I have so many patients that they think they're going to eat really cruddy food 3 times a day, but then they're going to take their supplements and everything's going to be okay. That's just not the way to go. But supplements themselves can be very, very dangerous because they're powerful agents. If something can help you, it can also hurt you.
And excuse me, Dr. Rothman, we're running a little bit out of time. Could you please tell our viewers who may want to get in touch with you how they could reach you?
They can reach me at my office. It's MD Wellness and Aesthetics, 230 Route 18, East Brunswick, New Jersey, 732-214-8711. You can visit my website at www.mdwellnessmd.com.
Dr. Michael Rothman, you're a treasure. You know, most people have to go to New York or Philadelphia to be able to get information like this at a substantial inconvenience and expense. I really consider you a treasure to have in East Brunswick. Thank you for joining me on the Wellness Spotlight and for sharing this important information with our viewers.
Well, thank you, Ken. It was great to be here.
This concludes another segment of the East Brunswick Advisory Health Council's Wellness Spotlight. I'm Dr. Ken Friedman, President of the Advisory Health Council, reminding you that wellness works when you work it.